Anatomy 32, Chapter 24, the Digestive System, Topics, Small Intestine. So after the stomach comes the small intestine. The small intestine is located in all four abdominal quadrants, and it is the longest portion of the gastrointestinal tract. The small intestine is also where almost all of the chemical digestion and almost all of the absorption of nutrients occurs. The small intestine can be broken up into three chunks or regions. There's the short duodenum. It's basically a C-shaped curve that's directly after the stomach. Then we have the jejunum, which is about 3 feet long, located primarily in the upper left quadrant. And then the ileum being the longest portion at about 6 feet long, and it's mostly in the lower right quadrant. And at the very end of the ileum is the ileocecal sphincter, which controls the passage of materials from the ileum into the large intestine. When you look at the histology of the small intestine, looking at its abdominal wall, you see that there are some significant structural changes in the mucosa. To start off, the mucosa has these large circular folds, as you can see there, all these circular folds that push up and into the lumen or space within the small intestine. And then along the surface of these circular folds are these finger-like structures pushing out that are called villi, one villus, many villi. And the villi are then lined with simple columnar epithelium. And if you look at the simple columnar epithelial cells, you'll see that on their surface they have small little plasma membrane processes called microvilli. And the point of these structures is to increase surface area. So increase the surface area that the chyme is exposed to, and that will then increase the absorption of nutrients. Here is a closer up view of some of the villi, and we see each villus, each finger-like projection, possesses a lacteal structure. Lacteals are lymph vessels that are able to absorb the lipids, the fats, from the nutrients that are absorbed into the small intestine. Between the various villi, there are some depressions referred to as intestinal glands. The intestinal glands are able to produce the intestinal juice, which is mostly water and some digestive enzymes. So when we look at the villi, we see that most of the simple columnar epithelial cells lining the villi are absorptive cells. So they are cells that are absorbing nutrients and bringing them deeper into the small intestine. On the microvilli of the absorptive cells are what are referred to as brush border enzymes. These are the last of the digestive enzymes that will break down the nutrients to the smallest structure necessary to allow the nutrients to be absorbed through the absorptive cells and into the bloodstream or the lacteals. The other kind of cell found along the villi are goblet cells, and goblet cells produce mucus. Mucus in this case acting as a lubricant, reducing friction as the chyme moves along the digestive tract. Within the pits, we find the intestinal pits, we find some enteroendocrine cells. Enteroendocrine cells secrete some hormones. These hormones can stimulate or suppress different regions of the GI tract. So they have hormones to suppress function in the stomach, since if there's food in the small intestine, we don't need the stomach active. And also hormones that will stimulate the muscular tissue of the small intestine. And then at the very bottom of the intestinal pits are the Paneth cells. Paneth cells are able to secrete lysozyme, which is an antimicrobial agent that will kill some microbes. And the pant cells are also able to engage in phagocytosis, so they can engulf pathogens and destroy them. Because, of course, the small intestine is an excellent place for pathogens to get access to the bloodstream. The remaining layers of the small intestine are as expected. So the functions of the small intestine include chemical digestion, various chemicals, various enzymes breaking down carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, breaking them down so that they can then be absorbed. The small intestine also engages in what's called segmentation. Segmentation is muscular contractions that will move the chyme backwards and forwards between different segments of the small intestine. This allows for mixing of the chyme with the various intestinal juices and enzymes and so forth, and also allow for some mechanical digestion. Then, of course, there's peristalsis. Peristalsis is the muscular contractions that will move the chyme along the length of the small intestine. And then, of course, absorption. The small intestine is able to absorb 90% of the nutrients and water that is found in the chyme. And that is it for this part of the Chapter 24 lecture.